you're the SME, you're the subject matter expert. They've been in uniform all their lives. They're in the military. They're used to being told what to do anyway. So when you're standing up there in front of them, don't teach them, just tell them what they're supposed to do.
You're serving these people at a pretty critical point in their lives, this big pivot point that they're making. I mean, you're transforming lives.
I really don't need a suit. Even some of the attendees of the class are like, man, I don't really need a suit, but I just want to come to your place just based off of the enthusiasm in which you teach the class and when you talk about what you do.
Welcome to the Main Street Matters podcast. I'm your host, Terresa Zimmerman. Hi, I'm Terresa Zimmerman, founder of Main Street Matters. I am here with Curtis Holloway, entrepreneur, educator, haberdasher, and proprietor of Suitability of McLean in Virginia. Curtis, welcome and thank you for joining Main Street Matters.
Good morning, Teresa. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's kick off right away and just tell us about Suitability.
Well, Suitability is the company is actually Suitability of McLean. We're located here in McLean, Virginia, right near the Tyson's Corner area. For those of you that are familiar with this area, outside of Washington D.C., Suitability of McLean is a men's custom clothing establishment. We have a very nice, just to give you some details about the place here, a very quaint 1,000 square foot space where people come and they enjoy just being in our space because of the actual experience and environment that we provide outside of just, selling them clothing. Suitability came into, or kind of, I'd like to say, fell into my lap by way of, hard work and preparation myself. And it just happened to fall into my lap by an introduction to my mentor. And if it's okay, I'd like to mention his name because it means a lot to me. A gentleman by the name of Sofio Barone, who is from Sicily with over 5 decades of knowledge and experience.
I've met
and we
him.
just became.
I've met
Yes,
him. Fabulous.
yes.
Yeah, sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. No. And so we got introduced through a mutual necktie vendor, salesperson who was a sales rep of another gentleman that I worked for down in the Tidewater, Virginia area. And he also happened to be a sales rep for Sofio. And he made that introduction when I decided to take a leap of faith and go into business for myself.
Amazing. Tell us a little bit about your customer.
Okay, so my customer, I'd like to say, I have a little something for everyone, even from your young teenage young man up to adults. And most of my clients, for the majority, are mostly military, mostly men from the armed forces of the United States here. And that's because of something, again, that was already established by my mentor. And I just kind of followed in his footsteps and picked up when I acquired the business. We actually teach the transition assistance program class there. We actually teach the Dress for Success portion of that class, where most of your armed force members have to go through a course of classes before exiting or completely retiring from the military there. So I really like to say maybe anywhere from 80 to 90% of our business comes from those classes. So when they come through the door here at our office space, we're not selling them. They've already been sold based on the information that we share with them in the classes.
That's phenomenal. Well, and where you're located too, McLean, Virginia, that makes a lot of sense.
Yes. And I'm very grateful for that, Teresa, for the location here, and particularly because when I travel throughout, some of the workspaces in other areas, what happens is I'm hearing a lot of the guys, especially in your southern states, say that, hey, they haven't sold a tie in years, right? And so fortunately for me, I feel like, being here with all the military establishments and all the government agencies, White House and things of that nature, this is always going to be, for the most part, a suit and tie town.
Yeah, which I love it.
So
I mean, men in ties every day.
Yes.
Love it. That's an amazing service you offer these men. I hope there's something for our women in military out there as well, because these guys are growing up never having to choose a lot of their own clothing, right? So
correct. Yes, they've been in uniform all their lives. They've actually been, told what to wear and when to wear it. Even though I've been in the business for quite some time prior to acquiring it from my mentor, I was still somewhat a little, I don't know, fearful is the word, but just a little maybe hesitant because I just wasn't aware of a lot of the military terminology, talking the language and all the abbreviations and everything that's a part of that environment. And he pulled me to the side, my mentor did. He said, "Hey, listen, you're the SME, you're the subject matter expert. They've been in uniform all their lives. They're in the military. They're used to being told what to do anyway. So when you're standing up there in front of them, don't teach them, just tell them what they're supposed to do." And that just made it so much easier for me. So
That's why I loved Sophia so much.
yes, yes,
Same with those undershirts, right? We talked about undershirts. Don't ask them if they need one. Just tell them they need one. Absolutely.
just tell them,
Just
just tell
tell
them.
them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So funny. So maybe talk a little bit about how you do what you do. How do you serve this customer?
So what I do is when, obviously, they schedule appointments, they come in and we sit down with them and we consult for maybe, appointments are scheduled anywhere from an hour, hour and a half. And sometimes it's so cool when they may have their kids with them, or that, husband and wives come in together because, we like to get the wives' opinions and thoughts on what we're wearing, because most of the times, we are dressing for them, for the ladies. So, but we go over everything from hair, skin, and eye coordinates to the specifics as to what they're going to be using the clothing for. Especially with our military personnel, they do a lot of traveling in other countries and things of that nature. So we have to factor in temperature, the climate that they're going to be, living in for sometimes over, a year or two sometimes. So we do that. And then, of course, we let them know what works best for them and their skin tone and stuff like that. And also, um, not only that, of course, obviously there's the measuring aspect of everything. And so we have to really, really educate them on, because, they could get as I was told, they could get a blue suit or a gray suit or whatever, from anywhere. But will they have the understanding when they leave out of that establishment of what it is that they've spent their money on, what it is that they're purchasing, how it's going to benefit them, how much versatility they can get out of what they've purchased? So there's a lot that goes into it, and we try to cover all those bases for them so that they feel extremely comfortable, not only when they're wearing it, but also even to pass on the information and share it with, because as you know, the military circle, although you got all the different branches and stuff, but it is a very tight knit group. And again, I have to keep referring back to things that I've learned and picked up from my mentor. He said, "Hey, you take care of these men and women of the armed forces, and they'll take care of you." And that's been my experience ever since I've acquired the business.
I mean, you're serving these people at a pretty critical point in their lives. This big pivot point that they're making. I mean, you're transforming lives,
Yeah,
wouldn't you say?
yes. And so, you just reminded me of, even here recently, but it's happened, within the past, ever since I've owned the business actually, but here recently, to have someone who has served several tours and had all these experiences in the military, fighting wars, and, their resumes are off the chart. It's just mind blowing, some of their stories. And then they're sitting across the desk from me telling me how they envy what it is that I do, and how it sometimes almost brings me to tears, and I'm just very
Bills.
it's very, very, yeah, very gratifying, very
Mm,
gratifying.
yeah,
And so I continue to serve myself and remain humble, and continue to do what I can do to give back. So
yeah, amazing. Well, so I mean that dives right into the role that you play with them. Can you just talk a little bit
yes,
more about that, because I feel like there's so much there. The
sure.
role that you have with those customers, or and with your customers generally, right? Because the military is
Yes.
primary, but
Yeah, but it's anyone that walks through the door. We've gotten quite a few walk-ins. We work by appointment, but we get so many walk-ins where someone just needs something specific, or in terms of like right away, because you sometimes being in the industry, you've probably experienced yourself where somebody may need something at the last minute, or some of your retailers say, "Hey, I need this shipment in by a certain time," or what have you, and you try to do what you can to accommodate. But what you make me think of when you ask that question is, I've had the experience and opportunity to also do like in-home consultations, and as a matter of fact, it was right at the beginning, Teresa, of COVID, and so I had never done that. I mean, of course, I've given advice to friends and family and stuff like that because they know I'm in the industry, but to have someone come to me and say, "Hey, Curtis, we know that we're right in the midst of COVID, and no one's doing any visiting and going to people's homes and stuff, but the wife says, and this is her asking me, she says, I am so sick and tired of my husband asking me every morning, how does this look with this? Should I wear this for this event or this occasion? And because she doesn't know much more than he does in
Sure.
terms of what he should wear, other than, of course, ladies see color much better than we do, than men do, and in a different way as well. But so she said, if you wouldn't mind, we'd love for you to come to our home and just kind of, we're empty nesters now. And so, he had purchased quite a few suits for me to get started at his new job. And then also, he had some things that he had purchased from some other locations, right? I went over, and after, like I said, I hadn't done it professionally before. And so I did some research and came up with a price for them that they were very comfortable with. And they said, sure, let's do it. We scheduled it for 2 hours. And Teresa, I was there at their home. It was maybe 10:30 or so when when I left. We were there for like 4.5 hours,
Wow. Wow.
and it was so much fun. And to see uh me take, go into one of the bedrooms where he had all of his old things that he had purchased from other places, and then he had things he had purchased from me all in a different closet there. uh for me to put things together in different ways with utilizing both, wardrobes, and then at some point to see both him and his wife go in and pull things out and say, well, how does this work? And I'm looking at it like, wow, I would actually wear that. And so to see my work being transferred to where they're getting it just after showing them just a few things, and explaining to them how, colors work together, and how contrasting patterns and all that stuff work, and how you can interchange the wardrobe. Again, a very gratifying feeling. So I like the fact that we provide that as well. And when they get to a level where we like to say they've graduated,
Mm-hmm.
where, hey, they don't want the solid shirts or the solid suits anymore. I have one client who specifically calls in and says, hey, Curtis, I'm ready to order my next fielding package, is what he calls it. And he doesn't want any
All
plain
white,
shirts.
all navy.
Yes. Yeah, he doesn't want all that. He wants some fun stuff, patterns, and he
Yeah.
wants the crazy linings on the
Awesome.
inside. He doesn't,
Yeah.
yeah, he doesn't care if he's at the Pentagon or wherever walking around. It's his suit. He's earned it, and that's him showing personality now, because he's at a level of comfort where he knows that it's put together well, and he can wear it with confidence. And so that does
That
does
was
our heart warm.
that was the word that came to mind. Is you're giving these guys confidence.
Yes.
Walk out the
Yes.
door knowing
Mhm.
that they are
Yes.
every bit of their resume in a different setting.
Right. As a matter of fact, I remember one guy in particular, he came out and he walked over to the mirror and he stood there and he says, wow, I feel like I already got the job. And that's the whole point.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the whole point. I remember one just recently, a woman came in with her husband she hadn't been in before, with him coming in for the fitting and measuring and picking out the suit. And it was for their son's wedding.
Yeah.
And so the dad came in with the son, and brought the tuxedo for the son and all that, and brought himself a suit, what he was going to wear. And when he brought his wife in for him to try his suit on, he was in the dressing room, and she and I were sitting at the desk having a conversation. And when he comes out, she put her hands up to her face like this, and she started crying.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, wait a minute, are you guys getting married too? Is this a double wedding or something?
Wow. Wow.
But she literally burst into tears, and she was like, wow, you look amazing. And so it was, I should have had that moment on camera.
Well,
I wish I could have, but
burned into your
I'll never forget it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll never forget it. Yes.
That's awesome. That's incredible, and it's amazing to be able to do that for people. Well,
Yes.
so it can't all be like fun and happiness, right? You've got to have some challenges.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable telling us a story about a challenge? Change all the
well,
names to protect the innocent.
So here's the thing with that. I just had some folks walk in prior to when we did the first pause. That, as a matter of fact, has been a challenge in the last few days. But I've just built myself. I'm not just me doing it, but of course off of things that I've learned and picked up from others, and in particular, like people like Sophio and other people in the business, and just in life in general, that especially when you're in small business owner, you have to become a problem solver.
Yeah.
And so I've had situations where a person will order something, they come in and they're a certain size, and then when they come to pick up, maybe 4.5, 6 weeks later, they're a completely different size.
Wow.
And you just have to figure out how to just make things right and make it work for both parties, for everyone involved. And so basically, in regards to that, I'd like to say I've just become a pretty good problem solver. And if not immediately, somewhere down the road, I make it right.
Yeah.
Because I have yet to have a situation where I've had, similar challenge or somewhat of a challenge, and the client has not come back through the doors. So, I'd like to say that I've become a pretty good problem solver there.
That's great.
I can't really think of any specific, details now where it's been like any major issues. I really can't.
That's great. That's great. Well,
Yes.
so I mean, aside from customers, because it sounds like that's all well, running a business, running a small business, there are challenges, and
Oh, yes.
they're
Yes.
not usually they're not actually. I mean, for myself, they're not usually my customers. It's
hmm
like everything else. So
Right.
where
Yeah.
what
So
is the
definitely, one thing is running any business, small or large. Hell, for that matter, just running a household. It's not. It's very challenging to
fair,
do by yourself.
fair.
So one thing is having good help and support. That's extremely important. And because no one's going to do it the way you do it, or the way that you feel like it should be done. But then also, on the other hand, you still have to be open to suggestions and stuff like that, and allowing other people to give their input, because I don't, you can't claim to know it all, and I don't. For example, I'm not the most tech savvy person. That's not my lane. I'm more of the relationship developer. Get them through the door and maintain the customer retention
Yeah.
type piece there. That's me, right? So I have to have people on board and delegate certain things and assignments to those, so that the business can continue to function in the manner that it is. Because I can't be here all the time, for one. I would like to develop even more of what I mentioned earlier, like going out into people's homes and doing in-home consultations. I'm getting asked more and more, even by outside organizations outside of the military, but may still have some type of connection with the military, to actually do more speaking and teaching, and even some nonprofits where there's mentoring programs for young men. But I can't be everywhere at once. So I'm going to have to figure out and have some assistance here on maybe how I can leverage that, and myself, and maybe clone myself in some kind of way to do that. So, but yeah, you definitely have to have some help here, and then there's the money side, the financial side of the business. Having to maintain that stuff, and making sure taxes and all that stuff is paid, and paid on time, and keeping up with those things. So as the gentleman who introduced me to Sophio told me, he said, Curtis, it's a great idea to go into business for yourself, but it is a tough business to do on your own. So you're definitely going to need a mentor. First of all, everyone should have a mentor. And also, I like to say everyone should look to become a mentor at some point, because it does no good to have the information or retain the information and not share it. As I had a good friend of mine tell me once, when we were both involved in one of those network marketing businesses together years ago, he told me, he said, Holloway, he said, you are the sharpest person in the room. You're the best dressed person, and you look sharper than all those guys that are on stage earning the 5-figure monthly income, 6-figure monthly incomes. But he said, you suffer from what I call knowledge constipation. He said, you read all the books, you listen to all the tapes, you come to all the briefings, but you don't act on it. In other words, you gotta let it out, act on it, and just keep continuing to get the information, but don't just sit on it. You have to do something with it. So, it does no good to just retain the information.
Right. 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 Well, and
Yeah.
are you doing something about that? I mean, aside from joining me on a podcast to tell your story.
Oh, yes, yes, I am. I am doing that, which is why I don't know if I mentioned earlier. I am doing more speaking and more mentoring and things of that nature. Yes, for sure. And just taking the initiative to because this is, I'll be honest with you,
Yeah.
this is only the third time that I've done a podcast.
Cool.
Yeah, the first time was with a gentleman who asked me. He's an author, speaker, motivational speaker, and I ran into him at an establishment next door. We were both getting some food, and he complimented me on how I was dressed. And he says, "Man, you're pretty sharp. Where's your business?" And I told him. And shortly after that, he came in, and I did an outfit for him. He
Nice.
was hosting an event out in Detroit somewhere. But shortly after that, he came in and interviewed me for a book that he was writing, and that book is called the King Conversations in Anthropology of Men. And so he interviewed 30 different men, and I was one of them. And so I am now considered a published author, and I'm in that book. And my chapter is called "Become a Sellout," being a sellout for your success.
Nice. Okay, so
And
repeat the name of the book, and I assume you can get it on Amazon.
yes, you can. The book is called
Oh, look at that.
by yes,
Yeah.
King Conversations, an
Cool.
Anthropology of Men. Yes,
Cool.
and you can get it on Amazon. Yes,
And anywhere else?
and so I'm
Barnes.
sorry.
Can you also get it on Barnes and Noble and
As far as I know, right now it's only on Amazon. Yes,
cool.
but so that's me in my chapter. Yes,
Nice. Love it.
become a sellout. Yes, and some of the things I talk about in there, and where I got that from, um, I still have a Hotmail account, and I actually use that as my as my Hotmail address there. But sellout is in the address there. But I got that from a gentleman that I heard speaking again in one of those multi-level marketing businesses, and I heard him say once that when he decided to take a different path than the folks in his peers and friends in his local neighborhood did, they began to call him a sellout because he didn't do what it was that the masses were doing.
Yep.
He wanted more for himself and for his family. And so he said that he had heard once that sometimes you have to be a sellout to get out so you can come back and help out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took that to heart, and it was very, very profound to me. And so over the years, I've looked at that to mean it doesn't mean selling out to your people or to your culture or anything like that. What it means to me is that you sell out to a purpose or a cause that will put you in a situation to where you're able to come back and help out people that are near and dear to you, right? And a lot of times it's the folks that are near and dear to you, I found, that are the ones that when you do decide to take a different path, they're the ones that you usually sometimes get the most opposition and ridicule from. And they're not even understanding that they could potentially be the beneficiaries of your success, right? But then you just have to, again, stay the course, and that's what I've done, over the years. And some of those same people that said, "Hey, man, you're crazy for leaving that." I had mentioned I was a mailman for 20 years, and so prior to getting into this business, and so people say, "Man, you're crazy for leaving that good government job." I had a kid at the time that was 5 years old, and so, but I had to make that decision. Was it a challenge? Was it difficult? Yeah, most definitely. But at the end of the day, those same people now are saying, "Wow, I wish I had the courage to do so." Or they could be on their good government jobs, earning a what they say on paper a good, strong six-figure income, but they're not happy. They're miserable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Well, change is very scary for people, and unfortunately, most people respond to change by criticizing whoever's doing the change. So, I mean, you're being brave,
Correct.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Well,
when I did walk out of that post office there back in 2006, and I always tell the story, it was on my birthday in 2006, February 25th. I went into work that morning, Teresa, and I punched the clock to start work. And about 45 minutes later, I walked back over to the time clock, and I swiped, and I walked out the door. And I didn't say anything to anyone. I didn't fill out any paperwork or anything.
just done.
I just knew that had to be the day. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
what did you do? What did you do when you left there? Because you didn't start suitability right away. So, what was your plan?
No, I didn't. I didn't have a plan. I just knew that it wasn't going to be that.
Right. Okay.
What I did was shortly after that, approaching late 2007, going into 2008, I relocated from the DMV here and moved back down to the Tidewater area, which is, I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, but I grew up for the most part down in Tidewater, Virginia, in Suffolk, Virginia, there to be exact. And I moved back there and I got involved in probably one of the worst industries you could think of as far as timing goes. I got involved in the mortgage industry
Oh,
and
nice.
the housing industry.
2006,
Yes, and
2007, 8. Oh, yeah, that's kind of,
terrible, terrible timing. Yes. And plus, I had no idea what I was doing to start with. So I had never done it before. And so I ended up moving back there. And I did that for about a year. And a friend of mine called me up and said, "Hey, Curtis, I know you like clothing." There was a person down in that area, a gentleman who had a custom clothing business there. And I went and met with that gentleman on my lunch break one day from the mortgage company. And the very first meeting, he asked if I wanted to work for him. And a year later, I ended up working for that gentleman and then worked with him for about 5.5 years there until I decided to take another leap of faith. I had built more relationships within the industry as well as more passion for what it was that I was doing. And so I said, "Hey, I'm ready to do this on my own." And that was when I had the introduction there from the tie vendor to meet with Sophia.
incredible, incredible. Well,
And that was a life changing decision to do that.
yeah. So
Yes.
you're not looking back. Don't regret any of the decision.
No, not none whatsoever.
It feels to me every time I talk to you that you're having a great time. I mean, all the hassles of running a small business aside, it feels to me like you're
Yeah.
getting away from what you do.
You I do. I don't know what else to say. It is again so gratifying. The people that I meet, the relationships. Um, I don't have to be pushy. I just show up and just do what I do, and people just it attracts people. I don't know. I've had so many people tell me that that hey man, I really don't need a suit. Even some of the attendees of the class are like, "Man, I don't really need a suit, but I just want to come to your place just based off of the enthusiasm in which you teach the class and when you talk about what you do." And then of course they all say that my story um, touches them as well in terms of making that decision to walk away from a 20-year job that most people think is like the one of the best jobs there in the world, but um, I just had a different mindset and just wanted more. It wasn't doesn't mean that I was better than anyone else. I just wanted more from. I was just different
Yeah.
than some people. That's all.
Well, and let's be real. Every man needs a suit. At
Of
least one.
course.
At least
Yes.
one. I
Yes. At
mean,
least one. Yeah.
even
They
if
say every man needs at least one suit just to be buried in, right? They say.
well, preferably even if they're just walking their neighborhood in it, just so the rest of us
Right.
who get to look at you in it get that opportunity.
Yes. Yes. That reminds me of something that I used to hear my dad say, and also some of his associates and friends, and even some of the older men that I've met that love clothing. They would put clothing on even if they had no plans, not even just to stand on the corner. Because they took pride in themselves first of all, in their appearance, and they took pride in everything. I know guys that just take so much pride in their vehicles, their lawns, their home. I tell some of the kids, even if it's trash in your yard and it blew in from the neighbor's yard, it's in your yard. Pick it up. This is where you reside. This is where you live. So the younger men that are getting into dating and stuff like that, if the young lady comes over and she sees your room looking like a whirlwind just came through and she's okay with it, she might not be the right one.
Oh, yeah, you're
Yes.
telling her to aim higher. Oh my God, that's
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, it is
Yes.
funny though because people will put stuff on. I see it. I go in stores all the time, and somebody's like, "Oh yeah, but I have nowhere to wear it." I'm like, "It does not matter. If you feel amazing in it, wear it to the grocery store.
Wear
It
it to the
doesn't matter."
grocery store. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But where we are now, the grocery store outfit being, pajama pants and Uggs and stuff like that, and
Oh, oh,
Crocs.
don't get
Oh
me
man.
started on airports. Oh man.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
I mean, I make loungewear. I don't want to see anybody in an airport in it. I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Put
mean,
on
they can
clothing.
they can.
Clothing. Pretend like
Yes.
pretend like you might have to get stuck in another airport and go to a really nice dinner. Why not? Dress for that.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yes.
I love
Awesome.
that. Okay, well, so doing what you do, and I know this. we talk to a lot of the same people because you have a peer group, we go to the same trade shows, all of that, right? So it's almost,
Yes.
it can
Hmm.
get insular, right? So how do you assure
I'm sorry. What was that? You said it can get what now?
a little bit insular, a little bit of a closed
Yes.
community, right? So
Yes. Hmm.
how do you assure that you're staying relevant and, and ahead a little bit for your customers, right? Because, your customers are out there, they're, maybe watching
Hmm.
the hottest trends, not that they're going to buy off the runway, but, there's trends out there. How do you stay relevant in what you're bringing to your business?
Okay. So what I wouldn't say it's much of a challenge, but maybe to a certain degree, because with the bulk of my client base being, mostly men from the armed forces,
Yeah.
they're starting out, of course, with the most conservative looks because,
Right.
it's kind of like you got to take baby steps with them because this is something completely new with them.
Mm-hmm.
But what I've also had to work on is once they've gotten those basics out of the way, here's what you need for just going out to dinner with your wife
Yeah.
or just going to on a family vacation where maybe it'd be a cruise or something like that. And, you're not going to wear a three-piece gray suit or something of that nature on a cruise ship, to the Caribbean somewhere. You need your casual wear. You need the wood underwear that's going to keep you cooler and things of that nature when you're,
Love it.
you know,
Yeah.
yes, you need those things and your linens and your blends of fabrics and things of that nature so that you're dressed appropriately for those particular situations. When I teach the class, that's a huge word that I use. Um, I use that very, very frequently. Situational. It's always going to be situational. So you don't wear everything in every environment. You don't wear every color in every environment. So that's the part that I've been working on. I think that we've, got that going because guys have again began to graduate and understand that there's a need for those things. And I will tell you another big help with that is the ladies, the wives, when they come in with them, which is why we extend that invitation when they make an appointment and when we speak to them and confirm everything. Sure, please bring your wife with you, because that's almost like an assist from the wife to us that hey, like they got our back because we're sick of him wearing just the jeans and the t-shirt and just saying that he's flip flops and he's comfortable. No, dress it up some.
Yeah.
Yeah, but still in a very casual, relaxing way.
Yeah.
And even if it's a suit, Teresa, I feel like it should be um, even just as comfortable as your pajamas. I've had a client call me, this attorney now, he's a retired JAG officer and he's an attorney. And he's called me once and said, Curtis, this suit it's like pajamas, man. And that's the way it should be. When they come out of the dressing room, sometimes we got to calm them down. They're doing squats and jumping jacks. They're like, wow, these are the most comfortable trousers I've ever purchased, right? Yeah, and I'm like, whoa, slow down, though. They're not yoga pants, but I appreciate the fact that they're comfortable, but you don't want to split the seams or anything right away.
Right. First time out.
But yeah, so but it should be just as comfortable. I remember, years ago, you remember when you got home, you had to take your Sunday clothes off and take your suit off, but no, for me, I could lounge and relax on the couch watching, NFL football on a Sunday in my suit and be just as comfortable as someone in their pajamas.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit more about nuts and bolts. So you said earlier, you said you're not a technologist, right? Surely you use
Right.
technology in your business.
I do.
There are tools and techniques and stuff that are vital to you that you consider like, I have to have this.
You said, are there tools and techniques?
Yeah, are there tools or techniques or technology that you consider vital to running your business day to day?
Yes, of course. And this is probably where I'm behind the eight ball, and I don't have any problem with admitting that, is the social media aspect of the business. Because again, that's just not my forte. Understanding that, it is extremely important to what it is that I do for even expanding on the level of success here that we're having is definitely necessary. So we are working on that piece, and I'm putting pieces in place for that, people in place for that as well, to be able to assist me with taking care of that part of the that aspect of the business there. Obviously, tech. With some of the classes, they're virtual as opposed to in person sometimes because of scheduling. So that was definitely a challenge. If I could mention, going back to your question about challenges, that was definitely a challenge as well, because it's much better because again, I'm very personable, and it's much better when you're in person and you're doing the quick, makeovers. And I describe them as like an HGTV makeover, when I'm just switching out a simple pocket square and a tie, and I'll turn the person around to face me. And then when I'm done, I'll do the old, okay, y'all ready? Move that bus, move that bus. And then I'll turn the client around, and when they see the difference, it's like night and day, and everybody's like,
Yeah.
when all I did was just change the tie, tied it in a different way, give it a little bit more kind of nonchalant and a little bit more elegant looking, and added a pocket square there, which is what we describe as that degree of chic. Our whole overall thing is your overall look should be understated elegance with a degree of chic.
How did you transfer that to Zoom? How did you do that, or to online?
So I had to actually use things like I had to set up forms as best I could for them to see those things, and folding, the pocket square in certain ways on camera so that they could see the difference in, a couple of different ways that you fold and add the pocket square to the, to the outfit and stuff like that. But outside of that, it really wasn't much more, that you could do in terms of doing a class via Zoom there. But it worked out, because at first, even the military bases were kind of getting used to it because everything was in person. And then, of course, COVID changed so much there. And then the classes, the numbers began to even pick up with the virtual classes. So that's when I saw, and then the feedback that I get from the classes. So they would actually put the feedback on the screen so I could see it, even before, we shut that Zoom down. And the feedback was very positive, which meant that, they wanted to continue to do those classes. So
Great.
That was a big help in doing that, because no one was coming in person and scheduling any appointments and stuff like that. Although you had these men and women retiring still, even through COVID, they're still retiring. But if it were not for me continuing to do the virtual classes, I would have took even more of a hit than what I actually did.
Yeah. No, the technology.
But it was somewhat of a lifesaver. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Technology
To
used
be able
during
to
that
continue
period
to do
saved
that.
a lot of us. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And you continue to utilize what you learned from that period now.
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I still utilize virtual when I can. As a matter of fact, I just was talking to a person yesterday, one of the facilitators over at the Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland, there, that, hey, I'm a little short on help now, and I'm being pulled in so many different directions. I may ask and request that sometime, as opposed to me having to go all the way out there and then drive all the way back here, and also it affects my calendar, my booking of my clients, because I have to block out a full, I have to consider travel time and all that stuff before, when the class ends, and then before I'll get back to my office. And of course, traffic in this metropolitan area is ridiculous and very unpredictable. So it affects the business somewhat to a certain degree, but things it'll work out.
Yeah.
I'll just stay the course as I have this whole time, and just continue to do what I do, and it'll work out.
Good. All right. Well, we're coming kind of to the close of our time, but is there anything that we should cover that you want to cover that we haven't covered, Curtis?
I can't think of anything right now off the top of my head here.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask.
Do you have any other questions?
I do. I have a couple bonus questions for you.
Okay.
I'm calling them bonus questions because
all right,
they're a little bit less day to day. All right. Bonus question. First one.
Okay.
So in 2, 3, 5 years, whatever period of time out there, what changes do you see, and how are you preparing for those now?
Okay. So what I'm doing is utilizing this time here where, I feel like things are growing, the business is expanding. I'm coming to the tail end, actually, of having the business paid off here in the very near future, within the next few months here. So very excited about that. But what I've done is just take advantage of my relationships and connections in terms of, as a matter of fact, I just had a client in yesterday who was from a class on this past Wednesday, where I want to expand it, kind of what I mentioned earlier, kind of clone myself if I could in some of the other areas where there's a heavy influx of military and armed force bases, right?
Hmm.
Uh, for example, like a San Antonio, maybe possibly something like a San Diego or something of that nature, and also the Tidewater area, which is right down the street from here. Um, to set someone up there, maybe to be able to do what it is that I do. I'll go in initially and get things set up there, and that way I can have those bases covered, those places covered there as well, as a way of expanding
Sure.
the business and bringing in even more more clients that way as well. And then also I've got some relationships with some folks that are like professional athletes and stuff like that, which is always, a big help in terms of marketing and stuff. So, and then just, making sure, of course, it always, regardless of what it is, putting your best foot forward there, and making that first impression the best there at every aspect, be it in business, personal, life in general, because people do look and watch. This is something that I've learned here over the years. Even when I started the business and I had a small space down in Virginia Beach, people are always watching, whether you know it or not, and uh, you may not even be qualified resume wise to uh, on paper anyway, to have a certain position or do a certain job, but someone could see a quality in you that, which is what Sophia said to me. Hey, you have it. I've watched you over the years. You're ready. Yeah. Now, and all you have to do is understand the why, what it is, because everything that you do, you do it naturally, but you have to understand why it is that you do it. And when I heard him say, to clients without even sharing with me that he was going to sell the business to me, and then I would hear him say things like, yeah, I think it's time for me to go. When the teacher is learning from the pupil, then that's a sign that it's time for me to move on and pass it on, and for me to create what he called is my own my PhD. In other words, he said your PhD is not just a piece of paper; it's what you've earned here from me, and you take it and then add your thing to it. So expanding it would be awesome, which is what something that I've been really, really seriously thinking about and contemplating doing there, as well as outside clients outside of the military world there as well, because again, I have something to offer, for everyone. And I've thought about several times uh, working on clothing for the ladies. That's something I'm still seriously thinking about, but
Oh,
not just yet. Yeah.
wow, wow. That's a whole other conversation.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so here's maybe a simple one, but I hope a good one.
Okay.
What or who brings out the best in you or your team?
Number one would be my son is a huge inspiration to me, because he has been a go getter and someone who you haven't I we haven't had to push him to do anything. He just one of those guys that just takes the initiative, does what he has to do. I'll never forget when his freshman year at Virginia Commonwealth College, some of his peers, some of the upperclassmen were like, "Wow, this young freshman came in and said, 'Hey, my name is Curtis Holloway. Where do I sign up for this? Where do I do this? Where do I do that?'" And before you know it, then he becomes president of different organizations and RA and all this kind of stuff, and that was just very inspiring to me. And then of course he had seen me over the years, be it even at the post office, but also my different endeavors in like the multi-level marketing business and stuff like that. He saw that I was never really content with just working a job there, which I feel very blessed and fortunate to be able to do so, but that wasn't the end goal. And I really feel like he picked up on some of that. So to see him take the initiative, kind of take the bull by the horns with his life, that's definitely inspiring to me. Um, my associates that are on board here, they inspire me to get up in the morning. We challenge one another. We all have our own different styles and looks, which I think is awesome for our clients when they come in and see kind of like three different age groups really, as well as three different styles of dress and three different approaches to the whole aspect of clothing and how and dressing for success there. And it all works. And then my clients, the relationships that I have with my clients, that makes me get up and even so my hours are Wednesdays through Saturdays 10 to 6, but on any given Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, I'll make the 45-minute to an hour drive over here just to be in my space, just to create and continue to be able to bring value to what it is that we do.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Thank you, Curtis. Thank you for joining me on this.
Oh no, thank you. Thank you for, all that you've done for, and assisted me yourself, in this business. And so, looking forward to, much continued success with you and wishing you all the best with what you've done. I mean, your story, I don't know the full details of it, but your story is also inspiring.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank